what's going on everyone? This is Amir from Backbrace channel and back to you with a new full stack application. In this tutorial, I'm going to create a to-do or a task manager application using FastAPI and React.js. Basically, we're going to build a CRUD application, right? It's a create, read, update, and delete kind of application. So we're going to start by scaffolding a new React app with this create React app CLI before building this backend RESTful API with FastAPI. So that's what we're going to do today. And finally, we're going to develop the backend CRUD routes along with front-end React components. FastAPI here, this is a modern, fast or high-performance web framework to build APIs with Python, basically. React.js is an open-source JavaScript library that's used to build UIs for web applications. Of course, it was developed by Facebook and is now maintained by both Facebook and a community of great individual developers and companies as well. And finally, let's talk a little bit about Chakra UI. So Chakra UI is an open source design system and component library for building user interfaces or UIs in your web applications using React. So if you're going to be using React, that's very common to use Chakra UI with it to customize your UI components, styles, and utility functions. Chakra UI makes it really very easy and fast to create visually appealing and responsive web applications. And before we get started to coding our application, let me show you a very quick demo on the application that we're going to be coding today. Alright, so as you can see on the screen, this is our final product, our final web application. And you can see these buttons here, the navigation bar, the colors, and the styles. This is actually Chakra UI, okay? So you have here some tasks: read Stephen King's Cujo, go for shopping, cook dinner. So we can actually update the to-do or the task. We can delete the to-do and we can add a to-do. So let's start by deleting a to-do. So if you hover over, the button will turn to red. You can click on that and the to-do or the task is gone, is deleted from the list. Now, if I want to update a to-do, you can hover over and you see that the color turned to a Facebook color. And that's, by the way, the Twitter color. This here light blue, that's Twitter color. This is the Facebook color. So if I'm going to leave the backend server running on the right side, you can see here that if you will delete a to-do, you can find here that get or delete to-do number 2 HTTP 1.1. That's the HTTP code 200, which means okay, that's successfully deleted. If I'm going to add, I can say draw a picture, hit enter, and that's added. You can find here that post in get. So we have posted, we have added, in other words, and we get our to-dos which are available again. And if I'm going to shut or kill the server, and so here I'll get nothing actually, just an error of course, because the backend server is not running. And I'm going to run that again. And if I will update, and you can find that nothing actually has been saved because, as I said, we're not using database. Tell me please in the comments if you'd like to see that application with MongoDB added to the whole bundle in order to create a full farm stack application. But for now, we're going only to work with FastAPI for the backend and React.js for the front end. And if you're new to the channel, thank you so much for stopping by. If you like my content, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to get the latest tutorials and courses from our channel. And with that being said, let's go ahead, roll up our sleeves and start creating our task manager application using React.js for the front end and FastAPI for the back end. Okay, welcome back. So the first thing that I want to do, other than changing my keyboard here, is I want to create a folder. So let me go to my general folder here, to my YouTube folder, and I will create a folder. I will call it Task Manager. So I will change directory to that folder. And again, I'm going to create basically two folders, but initially we're going to work with the backend. So I'm going to create that backend folder. Let's change directory to that. And let me actually open, before opening with Visual Studio Code, let's activate the virtual environment by pipenv shell. So pipenv shell command is a command that creates a virtual environment. Your folder is going to be isolated from the global file system, if you will. So all of the dependencies and packages that you're going to download or install are going to be solely installed inside that folder. So let's actually go ahead and check out the latest versions of FastAPI and Unicorn. So FastAPI latest version, right? So we will have FastAPI 0.103.1. All right, let's take that like this. So let's get back here to our terminal and I will do pipenv install FastAPI. And there we go, 0.103.1. And also I want Unicorn, so Unicorn as well. And let's get back to our Google Chrome. So let's check out Unicorn. And that's 0.23.2. All right, let's paste that here and install. Oh, and the installation failed because I have forgot to add double equals like that. Let's do that again. So we have FastAPI and Unicorn installed both in our folder. So before we get actually to the coding part, let me add a file here, new item, main.py. And then also I want to create a folder called app. And inside app, I want two files. The first one is init.py, and the second one is api.py. All right, so let's do dir or ls or ll, and you will find init.py and api.py. Great. Let's get out of that directory and let's check out. So we have our app folder, we have main.py, pipfile, and pipfile.log. Your backend structure should be like this one. If you're following with me, you must do it this way, otherwise you can get potential errors. All right, so let's work first in main.py. So let me open this with Visual Studio Code, but let's get one level above in Task Manager. So you can find here that it's Task Manager already, but you can do pwd to get your path. So we're inside the Task Manager folder, and from here you can type code space dot to open Visual Studio Code inside that folder. So first of all, what I want to do is to import Unicorn. And this line here imports Unicorn library, which I have installed. This is a popular ASCII or asynchronous server gateway interface server implementation that it's basically used to run asynchronous web apps in Python. WSGI, for instance, that's the Flask application, while ASCII is FastAPI application. All right, so that's the first line. The second line, I want the conditional statement, the if name equals to main. If underscore underscore name underscore underscore is equal to underscore underscore main underscore underscore column, and you hit enter, indented with an indentation of 4 spaces. So this is a conditional statement that checks whether the script is being run as the main program. And when you execute the script directly, so if you will do python main.py, this code inside that block here will run. So unicorn.run, open close paren, open close double quotes, app.api column app, then you will do a comma, then you will define the host, and the host here we will have 127.0.0.1, that's the local host. And also we want to define the port, So the port here is equal to 8000. That's the default port for FastAPI application. And also we want to set the reload to true, and that's basically for the debugging, for hot reloading. So this is very useful during development because this will allow you to see the effects of your code changes without manually restarting the server every time. The first line here, at uvcorn.run and open close paren. What does that mean? That line actually runs the uvcorn server with different arguments. So the first argument, the app.api colon app, this specifies the location of your ASCII application. So basically what it does, it goes to uvcorn and tells it to look for an ASCII application object named app inside app.api. And that's basically our main.py file. And I will open the api.py file. All right, so let me go ahead and import FastAPI from FastAPI. So from FastAPI, I want to import the FastAPI module here. And also from FastAPI.middleware.course, and I want to import the course middleware. All right, let me just make sure that the virtual environment is running. Okay, so it's already activated. So basically the course middleware here, that's responsible for handling any course related headers and options requests when we will do the HTTP requests. And I want to instantiate the FastAPI class by creating an app object. So FastAPI, that's okay. And next I want to define the course origins. By the way, let me know in the comments below what type of keyboard you prefer working on, the clicky one or the low profile one. So what we want to do here is we want to create a list of origins. So that list here, that's a list of all the allowed origins in the origins variable that we have created here. So these origins here specify which domains are permitted to make cross-origin requests to your FastAPI app. And what I want is basically the localhost port 3000, which is the port of React application. So whenever React will send a request from the front end to the FastAPI backend, the FastAPI will not block it. You know, it will accept it because it will allow it. It will permit the request from React. So let me just enter that here. So HTTPS without the security. That's better. If you will add as, by the way, you will get an error. So don't do that. HTTP localhost port 3000, and also we can do it like that. Localhost import 3000. Then we will take our application and we will access that method called add middleware. So add middleware. And basically this method is used to add the course middleware to our FastAPI application. So as I said, the middleware is responsible for handling the course related headers and any requests from the React or from your front end framework, basically. Okay, so first of all, I want the course middleware. So we want to configure the middleware with different settings. So the first setting here, we will allow underscore origin, and that's going to be equal to the origins list we have defined above. Next, we want to allow credentials. So allow credentials, and we will set that to true. So allowing credentials, that indicates whether the API should allow credentials to be included in the requests. And as you have set this here to true, that means that the credentials are allowed. Also, we want to allow methods, allow underscore methods, and that's equal to asterisk here. So basically that specify which HTTP methods are allowed. And as we have set it to asterisk, that means that all methods are allowed. And finally, we want to allow headers, allow underscore headers, and also we will allow all of the headers. So these are the HTTP headers that are included in our cross-origin requests. We're going to allow them all. All right, and to test our application, let me just create a get route. So that's going to be an empty route as /. So get route, and I'm quite sure that you have seen this many times. App.get on an empty route, and we will define the tags to be called route, and we are going to create that function. I'm going to call it read underscore route. That's going to return a dictionary. Okay, so that dictionary here, we will return message, welcome to FastAPI, or hello world, or whatever. All right, so let's do that asynchronous, right? So let's do async. So let me break that down very quickly. So the first line here, this is a decorator in FastAPI, in Flask, in Pyramid, in any, Python framework. You can find that decorator here, and I have a whole video explaining what decorators are. So yeah, I will leave the link to that in the description below. So basically that's a decorator in FastAPI, which is used to define a route for handling the HTTP GET requests. And as we have one GET request here on an empty route, that's a /. So this specifies that this route will be triggered when a GET request is made to the root path here of our application. Next, we have tags. So this is used to categorize your route. So in this case, we have tagged it as route. And that can be helpful in documenting and organizing our API routes. This line here is an asynchronous function, okay? So the function is called read underscore route, and this is going to be executed when the route is accessed. So it will return a dictionary, and that dictionary will be automatically converted to a JSON response by FastAPI. Next, we have return on line 23. So we are returning that dictionary here. So we are returning a dictionary with a single key value pair, key being message, the value being welcome to FastAPI. And the dictionary will be converted to JSON and sent as the response when the route is accessed. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that out. I'm going to open my integrated terminal here. Let's make sure that we are inside backend. Let's make sure that the virtual environment is activated, and it's indeed already activated. So what I will do is I will type python main.py, and voila, we have our UVcorn server running on localhost port 8000. Let me just click on that, and we have an internal error for unknown reason. So let's get back here and let's see why we have that internal error. I might have done something incorrect. Allow origin. Yeah, that's not origin. That should be origins, like that. So I apologize for this typo, and let's get back to our browser, and boom, message, welcome to FastAPI. So our GET request is working perfectly. Don't have any problems. Just make sure that you type here, allow underscore origins and not origin. So before we carry on in FastAPI, I want to create the React part, or the front end part. Let's again open our integrated terminal. Let's get out of our backend folder. So we only have backend, right? Now we are going to create the front end. I didn't want to do it through makedir, because we're going actually to use npx to do that. So you will type npx create React app, and the name of our React project. In this case, I want to call it frontend, right? And you will hit enter. And that's going to take a couple of minutes probably, so I will be back when it's all done. Welcome back. So our React application has been initialized. So let's take a look what we have here. All right, perfect. So we have backend and frontend. Let's take a look to frontend and let's see what's inside. Okay, so a good old React application with the meat and the potato. And what I want to do now is to install Chakra UI, which is that user interface component library. All right, so let's get back to our browser. Let's come here and let's do Chakra UI, and we'll access the website with get started. So what I want to do is to get the Chakra UI /React and also emotion React and emotion styled framer -motion. So simply copy that, get back to the terminal, paste that in and hit enter. All right, great. So we have here our source folder. You want to access that. You can do it using your command line interface, or you can get back here to the Explorer, go to front end, go to source, and you can do whatever you want here. All right, so I want to create inside source folder, I want to create a components folder. So we'll do make dir components, right? And you can see here that it has been added. Let's clear the terminal. And let me add two components basically. The first component, I'm going to call it the header. And the second component, I'm going to call it the to-dos. So new hyphen item header with capitalized H header.jsx. That's the first file. And why it was not in, oh, I didn't access that, so let's actually remove that file. Okay, and let's go to components and let's do the same new item header.jsx. You can find here that inside we have header.jsx, and we can do the same thing with the to-dos.jsx. So let me just do like that. Okay, let's close the Explorer. Let's close both Python files. And let's go to our app.js. Right, so let me actually do like this. We'll see here, hello. Let's do npm start. And you can see here, hello. Let's go and create our header. So first I want to import React from React, and we want to import heading. I want flex and I want divider from Chakra UI React. All right, sweet. Also, I want to create header object. So that's basically going to return, that's a function that's going to return flex. Do like that. So again, this is a functional component called header, and within the header we want to return JSX code basically, or JavaScript XML code. So we want to return that JSX code that represents the header of our web application. Okay, so I'm going to use here flex. So this flex component here, which I have imported, that flex component is from Chakra UI obviously, and that's going to create a flexible container for our header content. All right, and it will have different attributes as you will see now. So I'm going to write first and I'm going to explain later. So first of all, I'm going to write that very quickly, and I will explain it also very quickly because it's very, very easy to understand on your own, actually. So as, and I'm going to give it name of nav. So that's a nav. I want to align it to the center. So align center. And we want to justify by doing like that, space between. You can do evenly or around. All that in the nav bar, right? And I also want to wrap, so I want to set wrap to wrap. I want the padding Y on the vertical axis to be equal to 1 rem. So padding Y equal to 1 rem. Also, I want the X to be 1 rem. And I want the background color to be equal to that beautiful Twitter color. So, and these colors, you can get them from Chakra UI website. I want also the font color to be white. Okay, and finally I will give it some box shadow. So box, and here I will do 0 pixel, 2 pixels, and 4, and we'll give RGB A, and we'll do here 0, 0, 0, and 0.2. So basically this will add a subtle box shadow. So that's the style for our header basically. Let's do another flex. So another flex here. And here I want, so we will align to the center. And also I want to give it margin right 5 pixels. So margin right 5 pixels. And I will write here something like task manager or to-do list or whatever. So inside that flex, I want heading, and inside the heading, I want to write task manager. All right, and also I'm going to give it a few attributes. So this is as H1. So by default, H1. If I will leave it like that, it will be H1. But that's for to state it explicitly, because if I want to change, I have to change it to H2. Right? If I'll do H1, really doesn't make a ton of sense because by default is an H1. So I will change to H2. Size we'll do large, so LG. Font weight we'll do it bold. Font weight we'll do bold. And I think that's enough. We'll do like that. Yeah, I think that's enough. And finally, let's just put semicolon here, and I'm going to export default header. And let's go to index.js. I'm going to change that also to JSX. Okay. All right. And I'm going to change all of that actually. I'll do like that. And first of all, so we'll do Control S, nothing happened. Okay, really? Yeah, okay. So first of all, I want to import React from React, that's okay. Second, what I want is I want render from React DOM, and also I want the Chakra provider from Chakra UI React. All right, that's fine. And so I want to create that root element. So root element document.get element by ID, no, documents.get element by ID, and here, oops, we'll have the root. We will render the app and the root element. So that's down here, and I want also to import the header and eventually the to-dos, but nothing yet in to-dos, so I might do like that. I'm gonna create that app function that's going to return, oops, and I want to, that's not Chakra props, by the way, Chakra provider. Then I want here the Chakra provider, will open, close, and we will pass the header. We'll save that. Let's like this, nothing actually. So let me just shut the server. Oops, let's run that again. All right, and we have got our task manager. Perfect. So we don't need that anymore. We don't need, eventually, or not eventually, we will do it certainly. So to-dos. Yeah, but we will comment that line out for the moment, and we will work later on the to-dos. For now, what I want to do is to show here in the front end some tasks, and that's going to be retrieved from the backend from FastAPI. So buckle up, we're returning back to FastAPI backend server. All right, welcome back. So what we're going to do now is to create a dummy list, a dummy data list. As I said in the beginning of the tutorial, we're not going to apply MongoDB or any sort of database management system. So we're going just to create a dummy data list, and I'm going to call it to-dos. And that's a list that's going to consist of different dictionaries. So the first dictionary will consist of two key value pairs, so an ID and an item. So first we'll have an ID, and that's going to be ID number 1, and the item, and let's say for instance read Stephen King's Cujo, or let's change, let's do Dumaki. That's my favorite book for Stephen King, by the way. Right? So that's the list that we will use later to access those to-dos. So I'm going to modify that comment, get route for testing. That's the one for testing, and we will need another get route here. Well, actually, it's, you know what? It's the same, you know. It's very similar. So I'm going to take it as it is, paste what we have copied before. And instead of an empty route by that /, I'm going to add to that to do. And instead of the root in the tags, I'm going to say to-dos. And instead of read route function name, I'm going to say get underscore to-dos. And instead of that, you know, simple message, I'm going to define the data to be that to-dos list. Right? Let's actually go ahead and try that. Okay, so let's add another terminal. And let's do here, let's go to the backend first, and let's make sure that that's the virtual environment is activated. Okay, it's already activated. All right, and let's clear the terminal, and I will do Python main.py, and let's run the server. Let's go localhost port 8000, and we still have that message because that's the empty route, right? That's the /. But if you will do / docs, you will get inside the documentation that Swagger, the FastAPI UI Swagger, right? So you have here the root, which is the get, no problem here. Right, let's do 100. Let's just do it like that. So yeah, that's an empty route. But if you want to take a look to the to-dos, you will get successful response. We can try it, we can execute, and we will get our to-dos here. And if you're working on Mac or Linux, you can take that curl, and I will go here to my get bash, paste that here, and you will have your to-dos list. All right, so the server is responding perfectly. We don't get any errors. And let's get back to React. So inside your front-end folder, you want to go to the to-dos component, and you want to start by importing React. We want to also import the use state and use effect. We want to import that from React. Next, we want to import different elements from Chakra UI. So what I want to import, first I want the box. We want a button. We want flex. We want input. And be careful, all of these elements are capitalized. Input, we want input group. We want model. We want model body. We want model close button. We want also model content. We want model footer, model header. So we want model header, model footer. We want also model overlay. And finally, we want stack, text, and use disclosure. All that from Chakra UI React. As you may know, the use state hook is responsible for managing the application's local state, while use effect hook will allow you to do certain operations such as fetching data, stuff like that. The next thing that I want to do is to define a context object. The context object is going to manage the global state activities. You will use the const keyword, and we'll do to-dos context, for example, and that's going to be equal to react.createContext, and that's open close paren, open close curly braces. So here what I did is I've defined that context object, which is the to-dos context, and I did that through this create context function or method. And this create context method, by the way, that basically creates a context object. But actually what I want to do is I want two values, to-dos. So I'm going to call it to-dos, and to-dos here is going to be an empty list like that. And the second value is fetch to-dos. And I'm going to define fetch to-dos later. So fetch to-dos, and that's an anonymous function. So the next thing that you want to do is to create a component to fetch the list of to-dos from the local server, and we will set those to-dos in the component state using the use state hook. So to do that, we're going to export, and we'll call that function to-dos. So that's this is our component, and here we'll have the to-dos and set to-dos use state like that. And here I'm going to define that fetch to-dos. All right, so fetch to-dos, fetch to-dos. So here we are defining that function, and we will use async await. And to do that, simply we're going to do async, and that's going to return here a response. So first of all, response. That response is actually going to await on a response by fetching data or to do from the http:// localhost port 8000 of FastAPI / to do. Right, so that's the response. Also, we want the to-dos, so const to-dos, and that's also awaiting on a response.json. And finally, we're going to set the to-dos, and we're going to pass to-dos.data to-dos.data to fetch the data inside the to-dos list. So just to be clear, we have created here an empty, this one, and that's an empty state variable array called to-dos, and this is the state method, which is the set to-dos. So we can update the state variable, right? So that's the main purpose of this line. Next, we have defined a function called fetch to-dos. This function has a purpose to retrieve the to-dos from the backend asynchronously and update the to-do state variable at the end of the function. So that's all of that here. So again, I'm explaining and I'm explaining again because I want to make sure that you perfectly understand. So the next thing, and by the way, within this to-do component here, what I want to do is to retrieve the to-dos using the fetch to-dos function. So I'm going to use effect for that. So do use effect. And as I said, this is a React hook that it's used mainly to fetch data. So use effect will open parent, open again, and then we will return fetch to-dos. So we want the fetch to-dos. We will trigger that function. And after here, we will add an empty list. This right here, what we have done here, we have used the use effect hook. This is a built-in React hook that allows you to perform side effects in your components. And as I said, mainly data fetching. It does other things like DOM manipulation, subscriptions, stuff like that. This takes two arguments in our case. It takes the fetch to-dos, and the second argument is an array or a list. I keep saying list because, you know, my mind is more towards Python, but JavaScript language, that's an array, right? So this is an array of dependencies. And when this array is empty, that means that the effect will run only once after the initial render of the component. Okay, and we want to return. So I want to set up a React context provider using that to-dos context function here, right? So I'm going to open and say to-dos context dot provider open close tags, just make like this. And also I want to give that value. So the value here is equal to double curly braces and passing the to-dos and fetch to-dos. So this value prop here of the to-do context.provider is basically an object, right? This object contains two properties, to-dos and fetch to-dos. So these two properties are provided to any child component that consumes the to-dos context. So below here, I'm going to add stack. So that's a component called stack. Give it a spacing of 5 pixels. And inside the stack, I'm going to pass the to-dos dot map each to-do, each individual to-do, and we're going to map it through to-do item, just to render here each to-do item. And inside here, I want it in a bold font. Oh, I forgot here, parentheses. All right, just like this. We'll do like that. Okay, so nothing happens yet because I will need to take that to-dos and go to index.jsx and take off the comment. I see two errors here. So that's response and this is not capitalized. We are returning this response here and boom. Now everything is working perfectly. Fantastic. So our React server is retrieving or fetching data from our backend server. And if we'll delete that, we'll save, you'll find that the fourth item has been deleted. Add it again and it will be added. Fantastic. In the next part, we are going to add the post route in our backend server. All right, welcome back. So let's go ahead now and add the post route. All right, so let's go to FastAPI docs or Chakra UI, and I'm going to create again a new decorator. And as this is a post route, so I'm going to say at app.post, and again with /todo, and also tags are going to be equal to to-dos in the same category, right? And I'm going to create an asynchronous function, and I'm gonna call it add to do, and that add to do is going to add this to do as a dictionary, right? So this also should return a dictionary, dict. And then what you want to do is to append each to-do that you have added to the to-dos list. So we'll do that by saying to-dos dot append each to-do. All right, and then finally we'll return some, confirmation message. So we'll say return here. We'll say something like to-do has been added, something like that. Right, so let's save, let's actually refresh the page, and boom, we have our post requests added to our to-dos. So let's come here, let me actually take a look to try it out. Let's execute, and let's take the curl again like we have done. Let me actually copy it from here. Let's paste that in. Enter, and boom, to-do has been added. And let's actually go to our to-dos to add that add to-do function. So let me actually go here above, and underneath the to-dos context, I'm going to add the post route function. So I'm gonna call that add to-do. Right, and then we have here consts, and we'll get item and set items, and naturally that's equal to React.use state, and here we'll leave it as empty strings as usual, as in most cases, and also to-dos and fetch to-dos, and that's equal to React.use context, and we will pass here the to-dos context. So to-dos context. All right, so I will need now a function to handle my input. So I'm gonna call that function handle input. Handle input. It takes an event and will return set item, not items, but item. And here the event dot target event. So the event is the word that you are typing, right? So event dot target dot value. So this function here is going to handle your to-do submit. And that's also going to take event and will return a new to-do. So that object is going to have an ID. So that ID here is set to to-dos dot length +1. And then item is equal to whatever the item is. And then finally, I want to fetch from the backend colon fetch and passing the HTTP colon / localhost port 8000 / todo. The method is set to post. The headers are set to content type. Here is application JSON. And the body is set to JSON dot stringify, the new to do actually. All right, and dot then, because this will return a promise, fetch all the to-dos. So again, this handle submit function, this is intended to handle the changes in the input field in whatever the to-do that you're going to write. So this expects an event here, and that event is the main argument whenever the input value field changes basically. So inside this handle submission function, you create a new to-do object. So this new to-do object has an ID and an item. And then we use the fetch API here to make the post request to the server, to the backend server, right? With this, with a new to-do basically as a request body. And for those of you who don't know what is that stringify method, this basically converts the new to-do object into a JSON string to be read. And finally, we are fetching all the to-dos. All right, I want to create or set the form on submit event listener to that handle submit function that we have created. So to do that, I'm going to return and we'll open paren. And here I'm going to have a form, and you know, we don't need the action, but what I need is on submit. So let's take a look here. Yep, that's the one. I'm going to add the handle submit function, right? So we'll copy that, paste it here. Then I want inside here input, the input group, and inside I want input. All right, just to organize that a little bit. And inside the input group, I want a prop, which is size, and the size here, give it medium size for the input group. That's the input field right here. And the input, I'm going also to give it some props. So the first property is padding right. So PR equal to 4.5 RAM. And also I want text type. So type is set to text. And we'll give it a placeholder, add a to-do item, and I'm going to give it a label as well. Also we'll say add a to-do item. And finally I want on change listener, so the to-do item value is also going to be updated as your input value changes via that on change listener. So on change is equal to handle input. That is the add to do function, right? That's how it should look like. All right, and we want to add that add to do function now, or component, to the to-dos component. So let's put it here, right? Add to do. Nope, that's all right. And let's get back to our React app. We have an error, set item is not defined. Okay. All right. So let's add, so again, set item is not a function. Oh, I see what's going on. That's an array. I apologize for that. Let's save this. So let's say sketch a portrait. And it's added to the list. It's actually added only in on the front end. All right, now let's go ahead to api.py and add our put route, or you know, the editing route. So put route here, and again I will need the app decorator. So at app.put add the forward slash, I will say to do, and I will need to pick that to do by the ID, right? So not only to do, but to do / ID. Next, the tags are in the to-dos, right? And again, I'm going to create an asynchronous function, and I'm going to call it update_to-do. So update to do, here we need different arguments. So the ID here is an integer, obviously. The body is dictionary, and that must return a dictionary. All right, so I'm gonna loop over the to-dos list. So for to-do in to-dos, let's say if int, and I will need the to-do by ID, if that's equal to whatever the ID is entered, now I want to assign the body item to the to-do item. So to-do sub item is equal to the body sub item. And then I want to return a message saying to do with this ID number has been updated, right? So return, and we'll see here, that's the data. And let's do it with the F string. So in order to plug the ID number, so to do with ID number, whatever the ID is, has been updated. Else, I will say something like to do with whatever the ID number that you're trying to update has not been found, right? So say return, again with the F string, to do with this whatever this ID number has not been found. All right, so now let's go to the to-dos, to the front end, and start by creating that update to do component. So after the add to do, I'm going to do like that, put to do, delete to do. I want to create another function. I'm gonna call it obviously update to do, and this update to do function is going to take two different arguments, item and ID, right? So obviously those are the two arguments that we need. So first I want to see is the to do open or on open. So for that I'm going to use the disclosure that we have. We have the use disclosure here from the Chakra UI, because obviously we're going to use Chakra UI for the model. So I'm gonna show you that just in a second. And here I need is open or on open or on close, and that's equal to the use disclosure. All right, also I want to do, so to do and set to do, that's going to be equal to use state obviously. And I will need the fetch to do, so const fetch to do's, and that's equal to React.use context, and I'm going to pass here the to do's context. All right, so first of all, I want the update to do function, and that's equal to an asynchronous anonymous function that's going to return basically the fetching of whatever the ID that we want to update, await fetch. So that's fetch API, and I'm going to use the template literals here to plug in whatever the ID number that I want. So http://local host column 8000 and to do, and then I'm going to enter the $sign with curly brace to pass whatever the ID that I want, the ID number that I want, right? And also I want different arguments here. So first of all, I want the method. So the method is obviously put, right? We also want headers. So headers So the content type is application or JSON, so content. And then finally, I want the body. So body is set to JSON.stringify, item is set to do. This is exactly what we have done when we have created, where is it? Here, when we have created the add to do. All right, but instead of a new to do, here is the to do, whatever the to do ID number, the item that we want to update. And then finally, we'll get here and say on close. We want to trigger on close, and we will await the fetch to dos. And we have got an error here. React hook use disclosure is called function update to do, right? And uppercase later. Okay. Yep. That's convention. So I want to return, let's just open, close tags like that. Let's just like this. I need a button now. So it will have a height. It will have a font size. It will have font weight. The color scheme here is going to be Twitter, border, radius, to give it some roundness. Also, I want box shadow. Let's make it on hover, and then on hover I want to change the color from the Twitter to the Facebook blue. Size, and size here small. Good, small. Also, I want on click, right? So whenever you will click, that button will open the model. This is the properties, and that button is going to be called update to do. Now for the model. So let's do that very quickly. If you guys want to fast forward, you can do that, but for now I'm going to write the model. So the model also will have different properties. So first is on op or is open is going to be equal to is open. Also on close is going to be equal to on close. So that's the model. Inside the model, I need model overlay and model content. So you will have a header, and that's going to say update to do. So I will need model header, and we'll see here update to do. Also, I need a model close button. So that's the model closing button, obviously. Also, I need the model body. So model body, and inside the model body, I will need input group. So the input group, I'm gonna give it a size of medium, and I need the actual input now. So input, all right. So the input will have different props. So padding right, I'm gonna give it 4.5 RAM. Also the type, I'm gonna give it text. Placeholder, you can say add or update a to-do item, doesn't matter because it's going to be empty. So for the placeholder, you can say update a to-do item. Also for the area label, the same thing. And the value here is whatever that to-do is. And then on change, that's gonna take the event, and it's going to return the set to do by taking that event.target.value. So it's going to target whatever you are writing in that input field. So hopefully this is clear enough for you guys. And after the body, I will need a model footer. So we'll need a model footer, and that model footer, we will add another button, right? So close that, and I want the height to be 2 RAM. Also, let's give it font size of 1 RAM. Font weight, let's make it bold. Color scheme, also Twitter. Radius, let's give it again 10 pixels. And let's do box shadow, box. That's actually the same exact code, the same button. So yeah, I'm gonna write that very quickly. Box shadow, we'll say medium. All right, and on hover, again, say Facebook 500. Then we have the size. The size is small. Then on click finally, we are going to pass the update to do this synchronous function that uses the fetch API here. All right, and that's it. Let's just call that button update to do. All right, and we have got an error here, return. Yeah, okay, let's just clean that a little bit. And that's obviously inside the update to do function, the return. Okay, so I see what's going on. Let's do like that, and let's close the curly brace after the parentheses. All right, perfect. So this is our update to do function. Before adding that update to do function to the to-dos component here, I want to create a function called helper, or helper component, that's going to be used to render to-dos to clean things a little bit. Let me do here, do helper function for rendering to-dos. All right, let me just maximize the font a little bit. Here we will say function to do helper, and that's going to take item, ID, and fetch to-dos. All right, so again, this is going to be a functional component that will accept those three props: the item, the ID, and the fetch to-dos, which are used to display and manage a single to-do item, basically. And that's going to return, I want here a box, and I'm going to give it padding, so padding equal to 1 here, and also shadow set to small. Then I want a flex container. So this flex container here is going to be used to arrange the content with space between them. And by the way, that's often used to create a layout with elements on the left, on the right. So if you have, for example, a card or whatever, you want some items on the left and on the right, this flex container will help you to do so. And obviously that's not going to do it on its own, so we'll need to justify space between. Then we want text. So this text element here is going to be used to display the item prop, and we will give it margin top of 4. So give it 4, and that's going to be displayed as div. So as equals to div, like that. And we'll shut the tag. And then finally here we are going to display the item. Okay. And again, I want a flex container. So flex align, or aligning to the end. So what that does actually is that will create another flex container within this text element. And then finally, I'm going to update to do here our function. And I'm going to set the item as whatever the item that it's actually being targeted is. The same for the ID, right? And here I will set the fetch to-dos to fetch to-dos. So to recap, we have rendered here the to-do passed to the component and attached a button or update button to it. Now let's go here below to our to-dos component, and we're going to change in this a little bit. And instead of that to-do item, so I'm going to comment this out, and we're going to pass that to-do helper here. So to-do helper, and here I'm going to set the item to to-do.item, also to-do.id, so I will need the ID, that's to-do.id, right? And finally fetch to-dos equal to fetch to-dos. Save, and as you can see here, you know, nothing yet, because all right, so I've mistakenly typed the T not capitalized, should be capitalized because that's the function. To do helper is not defined. To do helper is not defined, so that should be the one. Capital T, And there we go. If you notice, the other to-dos that we have created are or have disappeared. So we have got read Stephen King's Do My Key, go for shopping. That's what's inside our backend here. So where is it? Execute. Right. So we have got those only. Once you will turn off your backend, when you will refresh, everything has disappeared. So let's add another terminal and go to the backend, do ppnv shell and do python main.py, and let's run the server. Let's go to docs. That's the put route, the get route here. What we have, let's try it out, execute, and you'll find that those are the to-dos that are predefined in our to-dos list here, right? Whatever you will add on the, let's actually refresh that. So whatever you will add, that's not going to be added to the backend, of course. By the way, guys, this here should be outdented like that on the same line of the for loop. Let's save and let's get back here. Let's try to update that one more time. Let's say drawing, update to do. All right, that's updating. Go for shopping, eating McDonald's. Right, so that's updating. Okay, it should update directly. It shouldn't wait for my refresh, but you know. And for the add to dos, let's try that again. Let's say read a book. Okay, read a book has been added, updated. Read a story. Okay, so that's refreshing is bothering me a little bit, but I think that's more on the front end side. I think the backend is fine. All right, so last but not least, we will need to add the delete button. So you see that the hover is working perfectly. We will need just to add a delete to do button next to the update to do. So first let's go as always to the backend and add the delete route. And the delete route, as always, we will have a decorator delete on to do of the ID inside tags of to-dos, and here that's an asynchronous function called delete to do, and obviously that to do is an integer. That to do item is an integer, right? And naturally that returns a dictionary. And here again I will loop over the to-dos list. So for to do in to-dos, I want to say if int of to do sub ID is equal to that ID, the same, basically the same code as we did for the update, but instead of update we'll say remove, right? So we'll say here to do's dot remove that to do, and we will return a confirmation message saying that to do with ID number, whatever the number is removed. Okay, and otherwise I will return something that says here, I will return something that says to do with ID, whatever the ID is not found. All right, and that's the end of the FastAPI backend server. So that's the API. We are done with that. And similarly, we will need here to add the delete button. So I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call it delete to do, and that takes the ID of that to do item. And then I will create fetch to do's, and that's equal to, as always, React use contexts, and here passing the to-dos context. Also, I want the delete to do function. So delete to do is equal to sync function returning. Here we are going to use again the fetch API. So fetch, again, template literals, http :/ local port 8000 to do with that ID. And here also I want method to be delete instead of put. Also the headers, here the content type is set to application JSON. And finally the body here is so we are setting the ID to whatever the ID that you want to delete. So I'm gonna say await fetch to do's, and again we want to return this delete button. So we need a button like that, and again we will need to have some props. So let's have height of 2 rem, exactly the same props, right, to be consistent in the measurement of the buttons for better UI, right? So we will have font size, color scheme, that's going to be yellow, and it's going to be turned to red on hover. I will do that later. On hover, just red. Finally on click is going to be set to delete to do. And basically we are done with the whole application. So the only thing that is remaining is to add the delete button to the to do helper function, right? So let's do like that. Let's do here delete to do. All right, and we don't need the item. All right, and that's basically it. So if you will hover over, so hovering is working perfectly. Here there is a / forget that. And by the way, I forgot to show you, if we refresh, we have got here our get, post, put, and delete routes. All right, so let's try that. We'll see if we'll get any errors. Please correct the following validation errors. Required field not provided. Okay, that's supposed to work. Oh, that's not to do, that's the ID here. That's why nothing happens. All right, so let's try that again. Execute, execute. Successful response. Okay. All right, so we got successful response, and as far as I'm concerned, there shouldn't be any errors on the API. The main problem remains here on the front end. So let's try to find that together. First of all, I don't like when you update to do, it doesn't update automatically. You will need to refresh. That shouldn't be like that. I've changed the model overlay. You should delete the closing tag of model overlay. It's just open and closing here for the model overlay. So that's actually it. And oh, I see. Oh my God, I haven't actually called the function, right? So hopefully that will work now. So let's try on other thing. Instead of drink tea, let's say, for instance, jogging with my friend. Update to do, and boom, there you go. So this was the error. I apologize for that, guys. Now let's tackle the error of the delete button. Okay, so still we have got that fetch on window invalid name in the delete to do here. So we are awaiting on that method delete content type. Oops, content type application.json. Maybe this is the error. Yeah, that was the error, right? By mistake, I've added / instead of a hyphen. So yeah, I apologize for all of these errors, guys. I was trying to haste because it took too much time, and as you can tell, I'm sick and I was trying to do my best. So let's try everything now. So you can delete, obviously, and you can add here, let's add drawing and sketching in the afternoon. Good, delete that, perfect. Let's say prepare breakfast. Let's say cook dinner. Let's say also drive my sister. All right, we can update that, drive my sister and her husband, or update, so it's updated immediately. So I think this will conclude our tutorial for today. Thank you so much if you have watched the whole thing. I hope this was useful to you. If you have any questions, doubts about any of those concepts, please let me know in the comments section below. I will do my best to answer you as fast as I can. You will also find the GitHub repo for the code in the description below. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Till then, stay safe and be well.